All right, so just it's Saturday night here. It's about 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Reading some of the comments on my YouTube channel, my video. Was it the last video I did? Um, just talking about the Prime Minister of France talking about. We got 500 days till climate chaos. We had the uh, advisor to former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, tweeting very recently about stock up and prepare for a market crash and banks potentially being down and things like that. And people said, yeah, but the French president, he just said that climate, to avoid climate chaos. He didn't say there'd be climate chaos. He just said we had 500 days. And I'm saying, I'm thinking to myself, uh, I think he's trying to hint to us to kind of read between the lines. How can you have 500 days? Think about this, less than 2 years, to avoid climate chaos, and doesn't go into details by saying, well, here's what we're going to do, or here's what I suggest we do to avoid that. No, doesn't talk about it at all. Doesn't make sense. If there's some kind of event that they know about that's going to happen, that's going to, again, we'll call it an act of God that's devastating. He's not just going to come out on news media and say it. He's going to say it as nicely as possible. Hint, hint. That's what this advisor just did. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to, because after the Prime Minister of France gave that speech about climate chaos, he went on and did a couple of other talks and actually mentioned a few other additional things that I'm going to go over with you in a second. And if you just kind of add all those things together, I think he was very clearly saying, read between the lines, listen to what I'm saying. This is as good as I can say it, essentially. But let's start off with this guy, the former Prime Minister of UK, his advisor, who very recently tweeted this. And this was from, August 24th, 2015. It wasn't that long ago. A former advisor to Gordon Brown has urged people to stock up on canned goods and bottled water as stock markets around the world slide. Damian McBride appeared to suggest that the stock market dip could lead to civil disorder or other situations where it would be unreasonable for someone to leave the house. Quote, advice on the looming crash number one. Get hard cash in a safe place now. Don't assume banks and cash points will be open or bank cards will work, he tweeted. Crash advice number two. Do you have enough bottled water, canned goods, and other essentials at home to live a month indoors? If not, get shopping. Crash advice number three. Agree to a rally point with your loved ones in case transport and communications gets cut off. Somewhere you can all head to. End quote. Crash advice number three. Let's read that again. Agree to a rally point meeting location in American English terms with your loved ones in case transportation and communications get cut off. Now hold on. Stop right there. He's talking this whole article from the Independent, mainstream media UK. Former advisor to Gordon Brown. So let's establish some facts. Gordon Brown was the prime minister. That's the same as basically saying the president of the United States, except over there. Okay. His very close advisor, Damian McBride. Okay, we know who that is. He was. Yes, okay. There's no disputing that. Is coming out upon his own free will to tweet on his Twitter account what I just said to you. And it's all, this article as well is based off, because here's some more. Let me just go here for a second. Quote, we were close enough in 2008. If the bank bailout hadn't worked, he said, and what's coming is on 20 times that scale, end quote. So this is an economic problem he's talking about. Why, in that case, would transportation, and communications even maybe potentially get cut off? Why is his third crash advice scenario saying agree to a rally point with your loved ones in case transport and communication get cut off? Market crash? Transportation failing and communications failing. Oh, hold on. Oh, my bank account just got wiped out. My headset quit working. Sorry about that, guys. Matter of fact, let's go real here. Oh, let me check my bank account. Okay. How absurd is that? My bank account just got wiped out. My stock portfolio just got destroyed. Oh, my car won't turn on, and my headset quit working right in the middle of viewing a YouTube video, precisely when the banking system just had a little hiccup. Do those things even go together? Transportation be shut down and communications being shut down. The only thing that would make sense to me would be transportation having issues due to the mass quantity of people being out on the streets and protesting when they find out everything was just wiped away in their retirement, everything. Maybe even finding out, oh, by the way, EBT, all that stuff, that's shut down too because we can't afford it, and we're not raising the debt ceiling in America. We're going to go ahead and raise interest rates, and here you go. And then there's people in the streets everywhere. That I could see transportation little issue there. Not because they shut it down per se, but they realize public and private, your own car, you ain't going nowhere. Streets are shut down by the people. That could make sense if it's on that massive scale. Why would communications get shut down? Those of us that still have a job and are working, well, we can't use the phone anymore? Can't talk to people, customers? Doesn't make sense. Now, let's go into what the Prime Minister of France said, foreign minister, um, and let's analyze some of his additional comments. We have 500 days, not a day more, to avoid a climate disaster. That sentence in itself. How could any man on this planet avoid a climatic, as in climate, not like climax, a climate disaster? What is a climate disaster? It could be a tornado, could be an earthquake of epic proportions, could be a massive tidal wave, flood, etc., etc., etc. Could even be a meteor impact, for God's sakes. How can anyone avoid that? We're going to avoid the New Madrid fault line giving way. We have 500 days to do so. No, you don't. It's going to happen. Kind of like if 10,000 years ago and however many light years ago, uh, an asteroid was coming this way with a precision impact on Earth 10,000 years ago. There's nothing you're going to do to stop that event from happening. It's already pretty much set in stone, so to speak. It's coming. Now we could avoid that. We could avoid that scenario by sending something up in space and destroying it. But let's be real here. We're not talking about that. He said a climate disaster. Again, maybe he is talking about something that they're going to allow to hit the Earth should such an asteroid or what have you come down this way. NASA has already come out. Look, we understand there's been talk about September. There is nothing coming at all. They've released that information recently. Nothing. Do I believe NASA would ever tell us the truth when that's ran by the Department of Defense under that umbrella? No, absolutely not. However, How can any person boldly say that we have 500 days to avoid a act of God, essentially, some random act of God, and then doesn't even say exactly how we can avoid that? Here's what we need to do to stop it. That's interesting. So let me move forward a little bit on this. So he says, I attach great importance to words. He says that. I attach great importance to words. So what did I just say? We have 500 days to avoid climate chaos. I attach great importance to words. Hint, hint, you stupid sheep. I can't say what I really need to say. Let's continue. There's also a date we must bear in mind, which will, I hope, be very important. September, or he says 23 September. There's also a date we must bear in mind, which will, I hope, be very important. 23 September. Interesting date he chose, isn't it? Hmm. This is no small matter because, unlike many spheres, life itself is at stake here. This is no small matter because, unlike many spheres, life itself is at stake here. Because, unlike many spheres, life itself is at stake here. Hmm. Interesting words for a foreign prime minister, France there, or foreign minister. The fight against climate disruption is essential. We must face up to climate disruption, climate chaos. He says then, cataclysmic in consequences. Cataclysmic consequences. We have 500 days to try and reverse the scenario. 500 days is extremely short. We've started working, many others with us, something which may not solve everything, but would help halt the 4 to 5 degrees Celsius rise, i.e., a cataclysm. Thanks to the decisions we took, and which will subsequently be developed, we'll manage to control it and get back down to 2 degrees into a livable existence. Hmm. So in 500 days, which um, September 12th, we've got 11 days to the 23rd? The day he says, September 23rd? And not a day later, he says, to avoid climate chaos. Now, this could be, I'm going to go on the other side for a second, other point of view. We all know the United Nations, the New World Order, the club, are using climate change to try and convince us to, America, you're too rich, you use too much resources, got to settle that down, cause planetary fear, so the ice caps melting and polar bears running for their lives trying to survive, which was nonsense because sure, ice shifted, but then a massive amount grew in other places. There was no problems there. So if they're trying to pull this whole carbon credit thing, you know about the carbon credits, You are a corporation, you're using carbon naturally because you're using electricity, so you're using carbon, maybe you have a smokestack, whatever. You're allotted a certain number of carbon credits to be used per year, but you are using more than your allotment. That's okay, because carbon credits can be traded, bought, sold, and traded on the market, just like stocks, bonds, commodities, and someone else that has excess amounts of those carbon credits can then sell you theirs, and that's okay. So hold on, we're trying to stop pollution, curb it way down, but you still would essentially allow someone to pollute and then buy through the marketplace additional credits to continue polluting the same amount. That's odd. So could he, again, I gave you the first part of this. The opposite side is maybe this French foreign minister is simply saying the decisions we made, in other words, we came to an agreement with the club member countries, and we're going to be implementing carbon credits and carbon taxes and this whole thing. You guys aren't going to like it. We're going to do it anyways. And by the way, by doing so, we've determined through calculations that instead of going super hot, planet Earth, we brought it back down to 5 degrees Celsius, 2 degrees Celsius by implementing this change and shoving it down your throats. So we essentially could and will have averted the worst case scenarios or scenario. However, my question would be, then how did you know you had precisely and exactly 500 days from the time you said it, which brings us to September 23rd, 24th, to do so? And just coincidentally enough, the Pope is coming to give his climate change speech at around the same time frame, within the days or right around there. I mean, days away from that event or the next day or something, right? I mean, it's that soon. Because if they've agreed, we're going to cut way back, and the Pope agrees, everyone should cut way back. And they said, well, we all came to this conclusion already. We had 500 days to come up with it. And maybe the 500 days is simply, we got to come to this agreement before the Pope speaks. Or else, if we don't come to the agreement, it's all off, and then we know where our planet's going to head, and it's not going to be good. So we need to get the agreement by all member countries before the 500 days is over, before that Pope speaks about the climate changes that are or the policies needed to deal with climate change. And maybe this is nothing more than political shenanigans. And the way the foreign minister laid it out was similar to how Nancy Pelosi laid it out. We don't want to show you what's in this bill. Just, we got to vote for it first. And once we pass it, then we'll let you see what's in it. Like it's a surprise. Oh, can't wait to see what rotten bill you guys turned into a law. Right? Is this the French PM, foreign or whatever, foreign minister saying essentially the same thing? We got major climate chaos coming in exactly 500 days, not a day later. And then gives another speech a couple days later, two different speeches, where he talks a little bit more about it, and then talks about we were basically essentially able to get our 5 degree Celsius hotter change down to 2 degrees. At the same time, you still have to ask, how could you fix that in 500 days? What did you do to fix that in 500 days? You maybe the answer is, okay, we are going to have a unprecedented worldwide chemtrail phenomenon going across the entire world to deal with the, you know, high rising temperatures. And then all of a sudden the massive, spraying of the planet ensues. That doesn't sound feasible at all. I don't think that's going to happen. This is just a ploy, I think, to get people on board to be scared of climate change, and we got to do something drastic. We, as in the government, and their friends, and their, you know, worldly friends across the whole world, basically, other politicians, other prime ministers, etc., to say, yeah, we agreed to what the same thing America did, and it's going to be all countries based on your population and size have to be at this level of carbon output. Oh, United States, listen. oh, you guys are way, way up here on that chart. You're going to have to back down. And we all agreed. President agreed, Congress agreed somehow behind closed doors, whatever, to do this. Or we hear for the first time, oh, as the Pope speaking, Obama just agreed and we're going to do it. No vote, no nothing. It just happened. Executive order or something. So we have to cut drastically down on our carbon output by executive order or something else. That could also make the other guys, the prime minister's advisors, stuff come true too. There's going to be a whole lot of pissed off people. We're not going to accept it as Americans. You're not going to change our American lifestyle. Matter of fact, somebody cue the George Bush Sr. speech. I've got news for the rest of the world. The American lifestyle is not negotiable. Yeah! Yeah! Standing up, cheer! Yeah! Listen, the foreign minister of France just called from the future, since this was in the 1990s. He said it's real negotiable. He and the Pope have already negotiated our surrender to the rest of the world, so to speak, and our usage of the world's output. Now, having said that, it is not fiction that the United States uses a huge amount of the world's resources. Just to do a quick little Google while I got y'all here doing this video. How much of the world's resources does the United States use? See if I can just find out about that. Here we go. Just what I needed to see. First page. Where's this 5% thing at? Growth in China. Worldwatch.org, huh? 5%, because that's the number I saw. The U.S. consumer. The United States, with less than 5% of the global population, uses about a quarter, or 25%, of the world's fossil fuel resources, burning up nearly 25% of the coal, 26% of the oil, and 27% of the world's natural gas. So here's the other side of the other side of that story. We really do use that much. That's not a fake number. It's not easy being the world police, okay? Costs a little bit. With only less than 5% of global population, we use 25% of the world's resources. 5% population, 25% world's resources. You can see a problem with that. I mean, it doesn't take a genius. The government's going to have bigger problems on their hand because the average American citizen is not going to all of a sudden say, okay, I understand. We use 25% of the world's output. We understand that. We're going to cut carbon gases. It's going to be better for the world, the planet, etc. And unfortunately, us Americans get hit the hardest. We're okay with that. We'll just accept that because we understand the repercussions. Even if these repercussions are 100% real, and a lot of them are, such as this United States American dream, so to speak, American lifestyle is not sustainable. It's not. Never was. Like Rome, the Roman Empire, they grew too big for their britches. And they expanded. Got to get more money. Got to get more gold. Let's take over. Let's war. Couldn't keep up enough gold. Couldn't mine enough gold. Couldn't steal enough gold. We have to coin clip. We have to now add different metals to coins. And what ultimately happened, it collapsed. The people, the sheeple of Rome, where are our Colosseum events that we used to have once, twice a month? I thought this was Rome. When this Rome, I thought I was living in Rome. Where's the Colosseum events? They're living in La La Land. And where's Rome today? There's nothing left. It's in ruins. Except for that Roman Catholic Church. It's still around. That's another story. But America is today's modern Roman Empire to the T. Let's go here. I'm doing this live. I'm pulling the Bill O'Reilly up. Write it now, type it now, do it live. Freaking thing sucks. Comparison of the Roman Empire and the United States. Let's just take a look. 8 striking parallels between the U.S. and the Roman Empire. I'll just start with this first article. Is our republic... Oh, got a pop-up advertising. This ad will end in 12 seconds. So, stand by. 5 seconds remaining. Don't you know I'm trying to do a video right now? I don't have time for this garbage. Now, is our republic coming to an unceremonious end? History may not be on America's side. Lawrence Lessig's Republic Lost documents the corrosive effect of money on our political process. Lessig persuasively makes the case that we are witnessing the loss of our republican form of government as politicians increasingly represent those who fund their campaigns rather than our citizens. Long story short, let's go right down the list of 8 things. First, staggering increase in the cost of elections with dubious campaign funding sources. Our 2012 election reportedly cost $3 billion. All of it was raised from private sources, often creating the appearance, or the reality, that our leaders are beholden to special interest groups. During the late Roman Republic, elections became staggeringly expensive, with equally deplorable results. Caesar reportedly borrowed so heavily for one political campaign, he feared he would be ruined if not elected. Number 2. Politics as the road to personal wealth. During the late Roman Republic period, one of the main roads to wealth was holding public office. Oh, I wonder where I've heard that before. And exploiting such positions to accumulate personal wealth. As Lessig notes, congressmen, senators, and their staffs leverage their government service to move to private sector positions that pay 3 to 10 times their government compensation. Given this financial arrangement, their focus is therefore not so much on the people who sent them to Washington. Their focus is instead on those who will make them rich. So, number 3, continuous war. We just talked about that a second ago, didn't I? A national state of security arises. This happened in Rome too. So, are we in a national perpetuity of war? Yes, we are. War on terrorism. A national state of security arises, distracting attention from domestic challenges with foreign wars. Similar to the late Roman Republic, the U.S., for the past 100 years, has either been fighting a war, recovering from a war, or preparing for a new war. And he gives a little list, and the list is far from complete. Number 4, foreign powers lavish money/attention on the Republic's leaders. Foreign wars lead to growing influence by foreign powers and interest on the Republic's political leaders, true for Rome and true for us. In the past century, foreign embassies, agents, and lobbyists have proliferated in our nation's capital. As one specific example, a foreign businessman donated $100 million to Bill Clinton's various activities. Clinton opened doors for him and sometimes acted in ways contrary to stated American interest in foreign policy. 5. Profits made overseas shaped the Republic's internal policies. As the fortunes of Rome's aristocracy increasingly derived from foreign lands, Roman policy was shaped to facilitate these fortunes. American billionaires and corporations increasingly influence our elections. In many cases, they are not only nominally American with interests not aligned with those of the American public. For example, Fox News is part of an international media group named News Corp with over $30 billion in revenues worldwide. Is Fox News jingoism a product of News Corp's non-US interests? Sixth, collapse of the middle class. Where have I heard that recently? In the period just before the Roman Republic's fall, the Roman middle class was absolutely crushed, destroyed by cheap overseas slave labor. Is that happening here? Now, yes, as a matter of fact, it has happened. In our day today, we've witnessed rising income inequality, a stagnating middle class, and the loss of American jobs to overseas workers who are paid less and have fewer rights than we do. Check, 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 check. Two more to go. Gerrymandering. Rome's late, or would that be called gerrymandering? Rome's late republic used various methods to reduce the power of common citizens. The GOP. I'm going to have to add a word there and remove GOP. The politicians has so effectively gerrymandered congressional districts that even though House Republican candidates received only about 48% of the popular vote in 2012, they ended up with the majority, 53% of the seats. Number 8. Loss of the spirit of compromise. The Roman Republic, like ours, relied on a system of checks and balances. Compromise is needed for this type of system to function. In the end, the Roman Republic lost that spirit of compromise with politics increasingly polarized between optimates, which is the rich and the entrenched elites, and populares, the common people. Sound familiar? Compromise is in noticeably short supply in our own time. For example, there were more filibusters between 2009 and 2010 than there were in the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s combined. As Benjamin Franklin observed, we have a republic, but only if we can keep it. So, this is history repeating. Corrupt politicians everywhere. Does this foreign minister from France, is he trying to hint to the people, I'm choosing my words very carefully, while simultaneously setting us up to accept the climate summit agreement, and maybe some climate disaster is going to happen soon, and they use that as an excuse to push it through? There's so many different ways this can go. I can't sit here and tell you which one I think or which one I even believe will happen. All I can say is, man, we are close. We are, again, today's the 12th. We are 11 days away from the 23rd. And for the amount of movies and things that have been pointing to this freaking date, it's unbelievable. That's all I can say. Take care.